morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, we are continuing our look at all of the decks that have won the Pokemon Trading Card Game World Championships. We are going to 2013, the third time that Jason Glasinski actually went and won the World Championships, and he did it with the wonderfully named Darkrai deck. I know, did not want to give a fancy name, and I heard somebody say at the time that it's just a Darkrai deck, so he called it Darkrai deck. Although there is an argument that given that he's won 3 times, he didn't need to try too hard naming the third deck. He'd already had 2 goes at doing so. Shout out to the lovely Christopher Collins over on Twitter. He suggested I start making some videos about World Championship winning decks. Although I've done a bunch, and I will link all the ones I've done in the description, I haven't done one for a little while. So I thought, you know what? Let's go and have a look at 2013, shall we? And Jason Kaczynski called it Darkrai deck for a very good reason. It's a Darkrai deck. Now, even though this seems 5 minutes ago to me, this is actually 6 years ago this happened, which is terrifying how quickly time passes as you get a little bit older. Enjoy it while you can, kiddies. And Darkrai was just a phenomenal card. The ability gave each of your Pokemon with Darkness Energy free retreat, and then the attack for 2 Darkness, 1 Colorless Energy did 90 damage to the active, and 30 to one of your opponent's bench. It doesn't sound particularly inspiring, but at the time we had Dark Patch, and ladies and gentlemen, Dark Patch was amazing. For newer players, it was Aqua Patch, but for Darkness Energy. And I know that Aqua Patch doesn't rule the format, but we don't have any water Pokemon as good as Darkrai was compared to the rest of the field, and this is very important, we just didn't have the same level of energy acceleration we do nowadays. Nowadays, something like Aqua Patch just pales in comparison to Naganadel. Back then, Darkrai really was better than the alternatives. And the other thing was the numbers. Back then, we generally had EXs that had about 180 HP or less. And then we had a whole bunch of support Pokemon that had 60 to 90 HP. So doing 90 to the active and 30 to a bench, it hit the numbers beautifully, and it really let you build up for multiple KOs in a turn. For instance, Celebi was very popular back then, where you just casually 2-hit that when it was on the bench. And Smeargle was very popular back then. You could easily get a 1-hit KO on that. So against a deck playing both of them, you could easily take out 2 Smeargles and a Celebi in 2 turns. Or you could hit something like an opposing Darkrai 3 times on the bench and then KO it in the active. Make no mistake about it, I know by today's standards it doesn't look like a powerhouse, but I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, back then it just hit the numbers. And that was what was so good about Darkrai. It hit the numbers beautifully. But the other big card we had that was really instrumental to this deck was Sableye. Sableye was just as crucial to this deck. I know it's called Darkrai deck, but make no mistake about it, when this Sableye went away, Darkrai got a whole bunch worse. I mean, it would have done, but they actually rotated out at the same time. It's not Confuse Ray, it's Junk Hunt. 1 Darkness Energy, put 2 item cards from your discard pile back into your hand. And we're going to see some others in a moment, but I've already mentioned Dark Patch. Dark Patch actually just let you get as much energy as you wanted, and this could just keep bringing it back over and over again. But you had stuff like Enhanced Hammer, and there was stuff like Mewtwo around at the time that absolutely relied on double colorless energy. So one option you would have is just leaving Sableye there, searching out all of your Enhanced Hammer from the discard pile, and just running your opponent out of energy. But the other thing we had, and this really helped out with Sableye and with Darkrai, we had the combination of Hypnotoxic Laser and Verbank City Gym. Hypnotoxic Laser automatically poisoned your opponent, and Verbank City Gym put 3 damage counters on between turns rather than 1. So what you would do here is just use Sableye to make sure you Hypnotoxic Laser every single turn. You were playing 4, but you could just get them back whenever you wanted, ladies and gentlemen. You could just keep getting them back and nobody cared. Well, your opponent might have cared, but it didn't matter because you could just ignore them. Junk hunting with Sableye made this deck absolutely amazing. And it basically meant that you had Hypnotoxic Laser and Dark Patch as much as you wanted. The other big item card that we need to talk about was Pokemon Catcher, because back then, there was no coin flip. It was just drag an opponent's Pokemon active, and you could junk hunt for it. So you could essentially have this whenever you wanted, and sometimes you would just spend several turns using Sableye, dragging stuff active, and just poisoning them with Hypnotoxic Laser, put them to sleep, and just take advantage of it. Now, there were 2 other Pokemon that you played here, and one of them was Keldeo, which was largely played because of Hypnotoxic Laser. Now, weirdly enough, you actually had to play 2 Keldeo here, because if you only played 1 Keldeo, your opponent could drag it in the active with Pokemon Catcher, put it to sleep with Hypnotoxic Laser, and then you couldn't use it. So you had to play 2 Keldeo, so that if 1 Keldeo was stranded in the active asleep, you could use the other Keldeo to switch. That's why you couldn't get away with just playing 1. I mean, if you only play 1, it could be prized, but you really did need 2 in case one of them was asleep. And you didn't need to worry about retreating it, because you had Darkrai. So Keldeo's ability let it jump in the active whenever you like, Darkrai's ability gave it free retreat, and you had a permanent switch, so fine, Hypnotoxic Laser could put poison damage on you between turns, but that's all it could do. It couldn't strand you asleep for several turns. And if you played back then, you know how annoying that is. And the other card we played here was Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime protected you on the bench. And what's really weird here is that not unlike Keldeo, this was another card that was crazy good for the mirror. Now, it wasn't just the mirror. We had stuff like Landorus back then. But make no mistake about it, this was phenomenal for the mirror, ladies and gentlemen. This was mirror-tastic. It wasn't just for Landorus and Darkrai, but it was certainly 2 big reasons. And that was it. In terms of energy, you've just played basic Darkness energy, because Dark Patch and such, and also for the retreat. But honestly, it was just Dark Patch. You just needed basic Darkness energy. Simple as that. So what about the trainers? Well, some of them we've already mentioned. Hypnotoxic Laser and Verbank City Gym, just for the extra damage. Pokemon Catcher to try and drag stuff in the active. If you can strand them in the active, you can hit with Darkrai while hitting the bench. So you can spread damage to the bench, or you can get a cheeky KO using Darkrai and Hypnotoxic Laser. Either way, you had a bunch of options. We also had Dark Patch to accelerate energy, which was super crucial, and Enhanced Hammer just to get rid of special energy. Now, Computer Search was your A-spec of choice back then. It let you search out any card from your deck, although the fact that it made you discard was actually quite good sometimes because of Dark Patch. If you could have Computer Search double Darkness energy, that could actually really help you out. There was an argument to play Dowsing Machine instead here, but honestly, you've got Sableye. You don't need to worry too much. Computer Search did nicely for setting you up and giving you that quick start. In terms of supporters here, it was extremely standard for the day. Professor Juniper and N. 4 of each. Professor Juniper, discard your hand, draw 7 cards. It was Sycamore before Sycamore was a thing. Best, fastest, most aggressive draw in the format. And N made both players shuffle up and draw a number of cards equal to their prize cards remaining. It was a decent, just draw card in the early game, but if you ever ended up down on prizes, you could use this to put your opponent to a low hand size. We played free Random Receiver here because you only played Juniper and N. They were the only supporter cards. So Random Receiver guaranteed you draw one of those 2, which basically gave you really, really good consistency here. It was phenomenal for consistency. Free Ultra Ball here, just because it could search out your Pokemon, and also it could end up discarding your Darkness energy, which could be good. We saw 3 copies of Energy Switch. Now, this could be used to actually just go from one Darkrai to another. Treble energy switch from one Darkrai to another, get rolling, make sure you retreat first, and it will be free because of the energy and the ability. But the other thing you could do here is Dark Patch onto a bench Darkrai or Sableye, and then energy switch the energy up to get a Darkrai rolling. Because you can't Dark Patch onto a bench Darkrai, but with the two of these cards combined, you could essentially do that. Or maybe you're junk hunting with Sableye, free retreat with Darkrai's ability, energy switch the energy up so you can be Night Spearing. It's pretty important. 2 copies of Bicycle. Bicycle let you draw until you had 4 cards in hand. It was just item draw. And this is a kind of deck where you can play most stuff. And you've got some cards that discard other cards from your hand. You can often get down to a low hand size, and then in comes Bicycle. We then had 1 copy of Tool Scrapper. Got rid of your opponent's tools. That was nice. 1 copy of Energy Search. The reason we actually played this was for Sableye. It was largely so you could junk hunt an Energy Search to guarantee an energy, because you can only get items back with Sableye. So by playing an Energy Search, you get it in the discard, and then if you're desperate for an energy to attach manually, you can get it back using Junk Hunt with Sableye. Because otherwise you could just play an 11th energy, but it was Junk Hunt that really made this good. And then 2 copies of Dark Claw. I love Dark Claw. Dark Claw just did an extra 20 damage for your Darkness Pokemon. Simple as that. It was Muscle Band, but could only be put on Darkness Pokemon. But you're only attacking with Darkness Pokemon, so it's fine. This was a fun deck, ladies and gentlemen. A really, really fun deck. It took an awful lot of skill to pilot it properly, which explains how Jason Kaczynski won Worlds with it. And it just gave you a lot of options. Sableye let you get stuff back, plan really big turns. Darkrai let you do several KOs at once, which was also really important in the age of N to make sure your opponent couldn't punish you for taking early prizes. And you had enough tricks here to really do essentially whatever you wanted. It was, frankly, ladies and gentlemen, an awful lot of fun. But at this stage, I would like to know what you think about this deck, and I would like to know your memories of this deck. So please do let me know all of that in the comment section. Go nuts! But please do remember the rule, ladies and gentlemen. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about other games that don't have Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.